Everybody, it's Randy Goodman here with Harvey Callis Real Estate, and I am here with the amazing Jamie Pritchard, who is a mortgage agent, and we're going to hear all about that. So Jamie, thank you for being here with me.
Thank you very much for having me, Randy. I really appreciate being here.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you. So you are quite intertwined with the business that I'm in. So of course, I'm excited to learn about it, and maybe you can give us a little insider info. So
Sure.
First, tell us a little bit about what you do.
So what I like to say is I make people's dreams of home ownership come true. I like to think of myself a little bit as a mortgage magician because I tend to take opportunities that other agents might not want to try or may dismiss easily. And for me, I find that's a challenge. Whenever I'm working on a request or a deal, I find no is just the beginning of the conversation, and that's what I tell clients. So I help, I especially like helping self-employed individuals get a residential mortgage for their home. I can do any other mortgages, but the nice thing about being a mortgage agent versus working with the bank, which I have in the past, is that I have 50 different options. And the key thing is I work for the client, and unlike working for the bank where I have to fit them into a box, and that's why I like to look for solutions because I've got lots of different options.
Yeah, and that's a difference between, and nothing against being a mortgage broker or mortgage agent for a bank, but
exactly.
When you're on your own or you're working for one of the independent firms, you tend to have more options that you're allowed to deal with. So you have a little bit more flexibility there, right?
A lot more.
Yeah. And so tell us, can you help? I know a regular standard mortgage, easy peasy, someone buys a house, they get a mortgage, and they're done, they qualify, and everything's, Bob's your uncle kind of thing. So it's awesome. But you also run into different situations that are a little more challenging. Can you give us a couple examples so that people out there know that maybe if theirs is a little bit off the cuff, that they can still approach you?
Sure. I have a perfect example. I was just talking to a client yesterday. They're a couple living in Toronto, want to move out here to the KW Guelph area, and the wife has a great job, has good income, but the husband has just started a new business. He's just done his PhD, and he has gotten his he is paying himself money, but the problem is that he needs to have 2 years of history in order for me to use his income. So that was seriously affecting their ability. And I had planted the seed of a possible co-signer. Both of them are sort of in their late 30s and didn't like the idea of having to go to mom and dad. But the daughter talked to her mother, and her mother was very willing to help out. I had a conversation with them, and the daughter was still, she said, this is kind of weird. And the challenge is what I tell a lot of people is the market now is so different from when I bought a house 25 years ago. And because prices have increased so astronomically over the last 5 years, it's next to impossible for a young couple to qualify just on their own, or have the down payment. In this case, they did have the down payment. That wasn't an issue. It was the income. So we are in the process of adding the mother as a co-signer, and the mother's happy to do that, and they're able to get into the home that they want and do this now rather than having to wait a couple of years for his income. Another quick example of a couple that I have also are actually a couple I just recently helped, two sisters. They wanted to get into they had money down. They wanted to get into a place now. We had done a pre-qualification, and originally they were going to buy in 2 or 3 months. And what ended up happening is when I went back after we got a live request, I realized that I hadn't taken a debt out that they would now have to continue to pay because they couldn't pay it off, and it completely skewed the numbers. So this is an example of where I had a little sinking feeling in my gut that I was going to have to call them and say, you don't qualify. But I made a few phone calls and I found a lender that actually gave some cash back to high ratio clients. And what that allowed us to do was pay off the debt. And while they paid a little bit more in interest, that's how they pay it. They were happier. They were very happy. They were jumping for joy. I said, I've got an approval for you. I was able to do that. And we're going to close on that in 2 weeks. So that was a really good feeling too. And that's kind of what it's like in this business. Some days you have situations where you think you've lost all hope, and if you make a few phone calls, then things can change around. And that was a really good example of being able to help those young ladies.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is this something that you always wanted to do, Jamie? Like, did you come out of school saying, I'm going to?
No, when I was younger, I wanted to act actually, but I didn't have the guts. I'll be totally honest with you. I didn't want to. I knew that it would be a challenge. I had an example. I had a father who had a high school education. He was in sales, and he did quite well for himself. So I followed that path. I started in retail, working for a company, if you might remember, Agnew Surpass, and I got the sales hook, and that was it. I spent most of my career with Bell, and then I took a package about 15 years ago. Went out on my own for a little bit, but the timing wasn't right. And then I ended up in the financial services industry about 12 years ago with TD. So no, it wasn't what I thought I would be doing. In fact, I hated math. I was horrible. And I tell people that, and they say, here's a banker who hates math. I really didn't. It's not that the work that I do here is pretty basic, and I understand a lot of. I can do all of the stuff I have to do, or I wouldn't have passed my licensing.
Right.
But it's not my favorite thing to do. But what I really focus on is what the at the end of the road. I am helping people with the biggest purchase in their lives, and I am very good at it. And I know I'm like a dog on a bone once I have an opportunity. And I think the key thing that I do is I will go down any rat hole I have to find that opportunity or that lender that will at least take a look at something. And that doesn't mean that I do, I get all the deals done, but I get a good majority. I would say of the clients that I get, about 80% of them, I'm able to do something and get an offer. Of that other 20%, I usually make that decision up front because I know that it's going to be a challenge, and I don't want to waste weeks of people's lives giving them some hope on something that I know probably won't happen. And what I do in those cases, I just give them advice as to what they can do and give them a time frame and say, maybe in 3 or 6 months, if you do these 2 or 3 things, we can have a talk, and you'd be in a better position.
I love that. So you don't just leave them hanging, you help them to work their way towards the solution, and so that they can make their dream happen. It might not happen today, this second, but you can help them, at least know what to do so that they can make it happen.
When I started with TD as a small business advisor, I remember consciously thinking, because I had been an entrepreneur. I had family help us with our first house. And the one thing I remember telling myself is, I am not going to be that individual that just dismisses people out of my office because they don't fit into a box. I've always had a large network. And if I couldn't get things done with TD, I always referred them to other people if there was other options for them. So the big word that I always used is I want to make sure people leave with hope.
Right, right. And I love that. And, you know, and I have some people in my like inner circle that I keep close to me that are like that as well. So it's not all about me getting the sale. It's about how can I best help this client, even if it isn't me, right? So
Yeah,
sometimes it's not you, and you have to be a professional and a bigger person and somebody with a heart who's thinking and putting the client first rather than worrying about your own commission or your own business and saying, no, I want to service this person. And in the end, Jamie, that person will refer tons of people to you because you were heartfelt. You were client focused, not my commission focused, right?
yeah, exactly. And I think you
More
said
important for you. Yeah.
yeah, you said the word there that it's about service, and that's what I'm about. If I will serve my clients, whether I get a paycheck from that initially, and you're right. I find although I may not get an immediate hit. 3, 6 months, a year down the road, people will call me and they'll say, "How did you find out about me?" Oh, these people that I never did any business with said you were really great and really helpful, and talked them through and helped them get into what they needed to do.
Yeah, and it's like it's beautiful, Jamie, and thank you for being that kind of person, because it
Thank
really
you.
is beautiful to just give and want to service your client, and it's the most rewarding thing. I call it mental income, just because it makes you feel good that you were able to help somebody else, even though there was no monetary exchange. It still made you feel really good that you were able to help somebody and they got the help that they needed. They were able to accomplish their goal. And that makes you feel good too, that you were able to be part of that process, even though you weren't the one doing the actual deal. But it comes back to you tenfold. One, it's what you put out to the world, it's your energy that you put out there, right?
Yep.
It's naturally going to come back to you. And the way you made someone else feel, so yes, you're making yourself feel good because you helped somebody, but you just made them feel incredible and helped them accomplish something that they wanted. And now that feeling, like it's all about, you know, people never remember what you say. You know, we know this saying, they don't remember what you say, but they definitely remember how you felt, right? Or how
Yep.
you, sorry, how you made them feel.
Yep.
And the way you made them feel, they're not going to forget that, right? The feeling doesn't go away. It's going to be a warm and fuzzy from Jamie all life long, right? So
Well, that's my hope.
what are they going to think about when someone else is looking? They're going to say, you know what? Maybe he wasn't able to help us directly, but oh my God, he went out of his way.
Yeah.
Go talk to Jamie and see if he can help you because he's just so incredible. And we know that if he's not the one, he will find you the right one, right? So,
Exactly.
you know, there's nothing better than having, you know, all these little referral and discussion things going on in the background that you just don't know about. There's nothing better than that, right?
Well, and you bring up a good point, because I always, as an entrepreneur, I always like to uh, teach other business owners key things from sales. And one of the things, what we've just talked about, is really only one source of business. And what I have learned is and in my business, it's important to have multiple ways of getting business. So I have a couple of strategies I use with realtors and financial advisors, and I also have a couple of different things I use, one for self-employed individuals in my database and for other individuals in my database. So it's important to have multiple streams of opportunity coming to you, and social media. So I do use social media, and I have got some business from posts, mainly from people that past individuals that reconnected and said, "Oh wow, it's really great to see that, and that was a really funny post. Could I talk to you about my situation?"
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Sorry, you never know where the business is going to come from. You just
No,
don't.
exactly. And that's why I like working on my own, because when I work on my own, I can set some goals and I know that the business is going to come if I do this activity. What I hated about working for the man or in a job is my manager always would ask, "Well, where is that business going to come from?" And the honest answer was, "I don't know." I honestly don't know, but these are the things and the strategies that I'm going to do. And I can tell you that at the end of the quarter, this is where I'll be at. Well, how do you know that? Because I'm confident in my ability to do the activity, and the rest will take care of itself. So that's one of the reasons why I left the banking industry, because you're always accountable for things that you can't necessarily have the answer for.
And I guess sometimes you feel, not to dish the corporations, but sometimes you feel like you're being micromanaged, right?
Yeah, and that was part of the issue for me. Is I had I had lots of experience, and my feeling was, and I think I was correct, is that the banks were trying to make the job where they could input anybody into that job with very little training, and as long as you did what they told you to do, then you would be successful. Unfortunately, I've made my career on kind of navigating and being a bit of a rebel within that, and that was becoming hard to do anymore. So that's the main reason I left. The other reason was because I was getting tired of saying no to good and deserving people, and that doesn't fit into who I am, because people would walk out the door that I knew I could help if we just had a little different policy. And that's why I came over here, because I like to say yes more often, and I do.
And I've heard that as well. Like even the manager of my bank, she would say, you don't know how many calls I have to make to, cancel people. The rule just changed. The policy just changed. And now I have to call, and you can see the sadness in her face. Like she had just zero control over it. But this is what she had to do because the nature of business and working for the banks, and they're very strict, and that's why they're called the A level.
It's certainly a challenge, but the reality is, for a lot of people, that is just the easy decision to make, and many people do, because they own about 70% of the marketplace here in Canada. But brokers for the longest time have had the brokerage business has had about 30% for about the last 10 years. What I'm finding now, though, is a lot of people, that is starting to change a little bit, because people are realizing that they might not be getting the best deal through their bank, and there may be other things that they may be able to qualify for more if they go through the broker channel. And people like yourself, partners, are always saying to their clients, "Hey, that's great that you're going through the bank, but it would be good just to get a second opinion." And I'm always open to that. And I will be honest with clients. Again, last night I spoke to a client who had an offer from their bank, and they called me and said, "Hey, what do you think?" I said, "Run." And they said, "What do you mean run?" I said, "Sign that document, call them tomorrow morning, and run to the bank, because that's a very good deal. I couldn't do any better."
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's the case sometimes. But the other thing that I like is because, you mentioned it, and I know this as well, is that people get turned down by the banks. So
Oh,
what
yeah.
happens when they get turned down is their credit report was pulled, right?
Yeah.
Then they go to the next bank because this one turned them down. And the next bank, the same thing happens, but they pulled their credit report again, right? And what I like about the mortgage brokers and the mortgage agents is you guys pull their credit report one time and you use that one credit report to go to whichever lenders you're approaching,
Exactly.
including banks, and
Yeah.
finding them the best deal, but it doesn't affect their credit rating because they didn't have to get multiple pulls on their credit report, right?
Exactly. And I say to my clients, I shop for you. So I've got 50 lenders. And if I submit a request to 2 or 3 different lenders, it doesn't impact, they're using that same credit report that I pulled. So
Right.
it's just the one time. Yeah, no, it's a big difference for them. And definitely.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. So I definitely I'm not a mortgage agent, but I like to, inform my clients to let them know, if you're fishing for a mortgage, then, you might want to think about going to a mortgage broker, mortgage agent instead of going to a bank because we just don't know if you'll get an approval because they've been, their rules are so strict and,
Yep.
they're turning down so many people. I just don't want them to risk that. So it's like, just do this first.
Well, and what I tell people, Randy, is it's always good to get a third party objective analysis or of your situation. Everybody has a friend or a family member that have opinion, especially parents. Oh, I remember when you've got to do this, this, and this, and there's Google. People look up on Google, and they become closet experts and think that they've got their bases covered. But the biggest problem with buying a house, as you know, is there is a lot of emotion involved with that buyer and seller, and that will definitely uh, fog the mirror, if you will. And if you have a professional like uh, that we are that really doesn't have, they're just interested in the best interest of you and are just looking at the facts and are taking away any of the emotion, I would always recommend that that people do that. And I tell clients when they are shopping around, I say, look, don't just talk to me. Here's me. This is what I do. There might be somebody else out there that might be a better fit for you. Interview at least 3 people. And I have a questionnaire, and here's the questions that you should be asking, and you can ask me. I strongly believe that having that third party, non-emotional business focus, looking out for that individual's best interest is always good, no matter what you're doing or what you're buying.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Jamie, is it important to you to give back to society or to give back? And if so, what do you do?
So I do in my business. I don't do a lot of monetary giving. One of the things that I do is I've always been interested in spirituality, and I have a degree in religious studies. At one point in time, I was going to be an Anglican minister, and I have always done that. So right now I'm actually doing a meditation teacher training. And one of the things that we have to do as part of that training, it's a 9-month training, 150 hours of actual training. And one of the things I have to do is 20 hours of compassionate service. So for me, the challenge right now with COVID is getting out and being able to help other and volunteer other organizations. That's not always an option. So I think what I'm going to do is give back of myself. I am looking at setting up a program early in January where I would help business owners, and this comes off of my podcast, which you're aware of, The Spirit of Business, and helping spiritual mind. They don't necessarily need to be spiritually minded, but they have to have a sense of purpose, and helping them through meditation and the sort of woo-woo stuff that I am good at. I've got a strong intuition, but I also help them bring that back into the practical world. So I'm not a guru that sits on a rock and tells them the way to happiness. That journey is individual, as we are as people. But what I'm looking at putting together is a way to, how do I be successful as an entrepreneur, and do that in a way where I get excited about getting out of bed when I put my feet to the floor. And I believe, because this is what I do, is meditation is one of those ways, and I'm doing it from a spiritual journey. And I've always felt compelled. And it sounds weird as a mortgage agent, like how do you take that? But it's about purpose, and my purpose is really to serve people and make sure that they are whole, not just in their home, because that's one thing that I do, is I help them from a survival standpoint, but also in their own self-realization. I know that's a long answer back, but I think that's my gift, and I've always shied away from bringing the two together. And that, for your listeners, I would say to your listeners, if you have multiple parts of you that you are separating, don't do that, because that only creates conflict within yourself, and it creates conflict in the things you're doing. You're never going to be the best possible person that you can be. And that was another big reason why I left the corporate world, is because I couldn't be me. I couldn't bring that other part of me. And maybe it was something that I made up myself. It could very well have been. But I feel here I can.
And thank you for that. Thank you. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways of giving back. I guess when people hear giving back, they automatically think money, but money, like giving back, is so many different forms. So thank you. And it takes us, with all our creative ideas, to come together to make an impact on people. So thank you for doing that. You do your podcast. So can you just quickly tell us a little bit about why you started your podcast and what the purpose is?
Yep. So it's called The Spirit of Business, and there's really what I wanted to do is, I started it sort of in the middle of the pandemic, and I wanted to provide a forum and a place for entrepreneurs and business people to come and listen to other business people about their struggles, their struggles, their challenges, as well as the great things that come out of all of that, to give people, again, that word hope, that there are other people. Because I know, as an entrepreneur, this is a lonely business, and if you sit and listen, and the only person you're listening to are your own thoughts, that can be very dangerous. So The Spirit of Business, the purpose of that is twofold. One is for individuals that I interview two kinds of people. Those that are not spiritual or have a spiritual sense, but they have a strong sense of purpose in their business. And I talk about the journey that they take on that. And then some individuals that are spiritual and have brought that into their business. And like I say, the purpose of it is really to help those individuals that are entrepreneurs, whether they're spiritual or have a sense of purpose, to show them how they can thrive, even in the midst of one of the craziest times in history.
And I love that. And that's just another way that you're giving back, Jamie. You know, it's,
Thank you for
don't
that
even think
recognition.
about all these things. And I know like a friend of mine is constantly reminding me, you know, of what I'm doing to give back. And I don't even see it that way, you know.
Yeah, you know, Randy, when I started it, I didn't even think about it. I just put it forth, and I didn't really have an idea. The name came to me, and it was something that I just felt was needed. So I put it out there. And this is another thing: is don't wait. If you've got an idea, setting up a podcast, it took me. I think I spent maybe $80 on my webcam. That was about it. I
Right.
had all of the other equipment, and you can do that today if you want to.
It's
And
even easier than that.
finding people, and just go go on other people's podcasts. I have done that. Who are they talking to? Reach out to those individuals. I find just putting it out to your friends and family and partners and people there, you'll find at least 5 to 10 people that will do it. I've had several guests that have referred me to other great individuals that have been great interviews. So finding people is not a problem. Just get it out, do it. Don't worry about what it's all about. I found after my first 10 shows, I had a feel for what I liked, what I didn't like, what worked well, what didn't, and then assess it every 10 shows. What do you need to adjust? And you can write the business plan, or if you want to, at that point.
Yep, perfect. I'm just going to add to getting started. You can start, I don't know if you guys can see my phone because of my thing, but you can start with a phone. You don't even have to buy a webcam.
Exactly.
You can start with your phone, not have to invest anything additional, and just get started. I mean, put a nice graphic together, right? And
Yep.
start.
Or your computer. Yeah, your computer has everything built in. Most of them have. Yeah, so don't worry about the technology.
Yeah, like just get started. And I like what you said is that don't wait, just do it. Like, you know, just start. And even if you think you're going to be crappy, so what? Just start it, because at some point, like you said, it took you like 10 times and then you got to feel for what you liked. Other people may be nervous about doing it. Trust me, once you like, you know, step out of that comfort zone a little bit and start to do it, all of a sudden you're going to find your groove, you're going to find your feeling, you're going to find what you like, and you're going to be more comfortable with it. And who cares if the first few, you know, aren't perfect,
Oh,
right? It's
but
not
your clients are your guests are just as nervous as you are, and I rarely edit out anything. So if there's a flub or something that I think that's more interesting to watch and makes it more humanizes it for viewers. So if you mess up, that's what happens. Maybe we should with both of our podcasts, we should put together the bloopers or something like that. Show people what really happens, because it's not. I do have an editor or person that edits them, but that to kind of clean them up a little bit. But it is quite funny what happens through them.
You know what, Jamie? And I love that. That's funny because like the first 150, 200 podcasts that I ever did, I actually went in and edited them. I would edit out all the ums. I would edit out any flubs that were in there. I would edit out like so much. It was so time consuming. And then when I started doing like the last 100 of them, I was like, I am just having conversations with people. That's it. I just want
Exactly.
conversations. I want them real. I want them human. I'm not editing them unless there's like a major faux pas, right? Which
Yeah.
I almost never edit anymore, other than adding in the intro and the outro. I don't go through the middle of the file to edit out stuff. It is what it is. It's a real conversation. I think, you know, for me, I love it more that way because it's a real conversation, right? It's not,
Exactly.
it's not, you know, it's like, okay, let's just talk about you. Like, you know, let's just
Exactly.
share what you're about and your passions and who you are and how you help people. So on that note, Jamie, who would be the best person to reach out to you? So what are they thinking, feeling, what's happening with them right now? Who should reach out?
So I would say the best. I'm going to give you my number one and number two. So number one would be a self-employed individual that's probably been in business for 3 to 7 years. They're looking at buying their first home, and they're having challenges doing that. Age-wise, it doesn't really matter. I find I deal with younger people. Typically, though, they're probably at least 30 to 45, and they are looking at and they're having some challenges. So they're self-employed. They are doing the right thing with their accounting firm. So what they're doing is they're doing what their accountant tells them to do, that you should basically write off things, and they're taking that to the bank, and the bank manager may snicker a little bit or laugh hysterically at the amount of income that they're declaring, and they want somebody that takes them seriously and looks for options.
Right.
The second type that I seem to be working a lot with is new home buyers, first-time home buyers in their 20s that are looking for solid advice and facts about how to get into the market and look at different options.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So if you guys feel you fit into those, and even if you don't, you can reach out to Jamie. So Jamie, how do they find you?
My website, jamielovesmortgages.ca, or 519-400-5578.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much, Jamie. Are there any tips or anything you want to leave everybody with?
The only tip I would say is don't listen to friends and family. Don't listen to the news and believe that your situation is hopeless. It may not be. Talk to a professional who can tell you the truth based on facts.
I love that.
Thanks for having me, Randy.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jamie, for being on. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
Awesome.